Jamie!
Hey, Anthony. How are you, sir?
What's up, big man? How's it going?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you giving me time to talk to me today.
Oh, man, thank you for calling in. Appreciate it.
I love the movie,
Thank you.
first of all, and I love you in it. It was so refreshing to me. I was telling Paul earlier to see a return to a kind of film that is about people, which is always refreshing. So, first of all, I'm curious from you, what spoke to you about it in particular when you first read it?
It was the level of humanity and dignity Paul put into the characters. I feel like when you see this movie, Paul was able to find beauty and joy in despair. And that's something you never really get to see, and something that I feel is really important. When you look at people and you're like, oh, man, their life is really bad. In actuality, they're able to find good moments in it,
Yeah. When you read a script like Shelter, is it important for you to be able in your mind to know that you can play it, to visualize yourself playing it upon that first read?
No. It's actually the opposite. About 3 years ago, I realized that I had gotten comfortable in my career and in acting, and I wasn't really taking chances anymore. So I went to my reps, and I was like, I want something different. I want something challenging. I want some fucking lines in a movie. And, it's funny. Most actors won't allow themselves to not be photographed in their most beautiful essence, And I feel like sometimes there's some merit, there's some grit to getting a little dirty. And that was one of the things that excited me about this movie, was just the potential and opportunity of getting dirty, of being seen in a different light, and challenging myself. I'm always excited to fail, I guess. And I feel like the more opportunities as an actor you put yourself in to fail, those opportunities you're actually, going possibly to succeeding.
Well, I'll tell you, you absolutely do not fail in any fashion whatsoever in this film. You're phenomenal in it. But it does bring up an interesting topic about the creative community, but actually the world at large and how we view failure.
Right.
So I think it's such kind of a refreshing, healthy perspective to take that, I could easily fail on this, but that's part of the attraction.
Right. Well, I don't think failure is a bad thing. I actually really, I feel like it keeps you on your toes. If you're always in a position where you're not failing, then you're not really trying. You're not really thinking outside the box. And I've made my career, fortunately, putting myself in a position of being outside the box. And, I've had some bumps and bruises along the way, but when I've succeeded, I've really succeeded.
So what scared you most about the role?
The subject matter. It's funny when I do a role like this, or any role, you really have to start within yourself and ask yourself a lot of questions and see how it pertains to you in day-to-day life. And I realized that I was just, at some point in time, I had lost my humanity, my decency towards my fellow man. And I think, to be honest, I just got caught up in the idea of being a movie star, and, you see someone struggling and you just step past them to make it to your friends at the restaurant, and don't give it a second thought. I think that's one of the things where I really wanted to focus on and pay attention to. I'm really glad I became aware of, because, it's with a movie like this, you can't be desensitized to the world around you. You can't become a internet junkie and live your soul cyber life and get rid of the reality that you're living in order to do a movie like this.
But that's exactly what you've just expressed about kind of wanting to find a return to humanity from the whole movie star, whatever that is. I mean, I feel like that's exactly what you've done with this film, because we're used to seeing homelessness, as an issue, and we don't have to think of it in necessarily human terms. But you bring, and this is the power of art in this particular film, you bring a humanity to that plight, and that's what's going to hold the power for people to look at it in a new way.
Oh, thank you. I think that's our job. I mean, it's funny when I think about it. It's like the first time you see a Kurosawa movie, or the first time you see a Charlie Chaplin movie. The ability to express yourself without verbal communication is something that always pulls people in. It's always interesting to see nonverbal communication. And as an actor, you don't get a lot of opportunities to be quiet and still. And when I read the script, there were so many things that Paul was expressing and communicating without lines. Like the whole falling in love sequence with us falling into the puddle, and, the whole pool sequence and all that stuff. It's really classic in the way it's shot and portrayed. And, it's something you don't really get to do too often. It was really, magical. And then, when you look at these two characters, once they find each other, it's like they find solace in each other. You find your soulmate. You find the person that makes this harsh reality you live in okay and bearable. And I think that's what most of us are looking for. I think when you think about your spouse, or you think about your kids, or you think about your best friends even, that's what they offer you. That's what they give you, and that doesn't change just because you don't have a place to call home. Yeah,
kind of like a place of stillness in a chaotic world.
Exactly.
So
everybody wants their cheers.
Yeah, tell me how you went about finding the truth of this character.
It's funny because at the end of my block in Brooklyn, there's a homeless shelter. So I will put on a baseball cap, a hoodie, and just walk out and sit out on the corner and just, watch these guys together, how they interacted with each other, how their day went by, who was the storytellers, who were the enablers, who were the abusers, and so on and so forth. And then at the end of the day, watching them all line up and go into the shelter one by one. And then when that line was cut off, the level of fear and disappointment in the eyes of the people who didn't make it in.
Yeah.
And that was something, when I saw that, I was, I was heartbroken. I was surprised. I was confused. And then, Paul had the essence of that in the script, that level of, desperation. And it's not, hourly desperation or once in a blue moon desperation. It's a nightly desperation of finding a place to sleep, finding food to eat, finding shelter. It was something that I felt that was conveyed beautifully in this film.
And you mentioned earlier the dignity you found in the characters, which is remarkable because, their day-to-day existence, the reality of their lives, it's all about degradation and desperation. So when you can find the dignity of your character, that makes it extra heartbreaking. So where did you find that dignity? How do you define the dignity of that character?
And that's, I feel, a testament to Paul, because it was 100% in the script. When you look at this character, you look at everything that he's come from and everywhere that he's been, everything that he achieved and everything he lost. And then you see him at the start of this movie, and you know none of that. And you see the journey that he, of him coming to America and forming this new reality, and him finding this woman and realizing that she is the one thing that can get him into heaven. He placed everything on her, and he realized that if he can get her to go home and be with her son, she's his guardian angel. If she would go home and just be with her son and fix that relationship, he'd get into heaven so that he can see his son again. And that desperation, and also that, that spirit of knowing, when you can appreciate or understand how hard it is to lose a child, but you don't know it until you have a child. And I think with Tahir, with losing his son and the way in which he lost his son, it was the first movie that described and explained someone getting into terrorist activity or in a hate group or a group of passion that I understood.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not saying I condone it or I appreciated why he did it, but I understood why Boko Haram became the next step in his life.
I completely agree. Yeah. And there's also kind of a technical question that I wanted to ask you. It's just a process question. Especially, you're part of the Marvel universe, so you have worked on very massive films. And congratulations on that, by the way. But this is a different beast. You're doing a 20 to 22 day shooting schedule. What different demands does that place on you as an actor? And does the short schedule, does that infuse a certain energy in your performance that might not otherwise be there? I don't know if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. It's funny because I enjoy the short schedule. I feel like I've done a few movies like this, and I feel like I give my best work in this surrounding because it takes the fluff off the movie. I feel like if you look at a movie like Night Catches Us, if you look at Half Nelson, if you look at my first movie, Brother to Brother, they were all shot 25 days or less. And, it kind of gives the actor the freedom that he would have like he was doing a play.
Yeah.
Because you can't work from a place of visual stimulation. You have to work from a place of intentions. And every actor, the most important thing he has to have at the beginning of the day of work is knowing what's his motivation. It's the biggest joke about any movie or any actor. Well, I think what's my motivation? And I think with movies like this, you don't have time for the explosions and the conversations and the rewrites and the producers and the sides. You literally have to go to the director and say, what's my motivation in the scene? And then work from there. And movies like this, it's funny because it's so much like doing a play, and it's like working in the theater because you really can only count on the actor that's across from you. But what's so dope about it is it really prepares you and makes you appreciate doing the Marvel type movies. Because once I finished this and I went back to a Marvel movie, I was like, oh, my God, craft service. Oh, this is so great. Oh, I have a trailer. Oh, this is so great.
Yeah, absolutely. My last question for you. I would imagine that you've seen this with an audience, whether it be a festival or what have you. What has particularly surprised you, or what have you been taken by in their reaction to it? How they've engaged in it?
What's really beautiful is how the audience has left the movie seeing themselves within these characters. I feel like, a lot of times because of the way we've progressed as a culture, we forget the importance of just human interaction. We forget the importance of and desire to be needed and wanted and appreciated. A lot of times we we don't place the proper value on being taken care of.
Yeah. And
one thing about this movie is you see two people who truly take care of each other, and that's what's so beautiful about it, And that's when I see people come out of it, they really understand and remember how important it is just to be taken care of by another person.